Good morning, everyone. For the folks on the West Coast, and I'm sure it's well close to afternoon here. I'm Sundi Natarajan. I'm the president-elect of TIDC and also the GovCon co-chair for 2020. I want to welcome one and all for this panel on emerging technologies featuring cloud and hybrid cloud. Before we get started, I wanted to share some data points at a very high level. I think modernization came up as one of the top 3 priorities when CIOs and CTOs from the federal government agencies were polled, which is not at all surprising. But what is surprising is even in the midst of COVID and the post-COVID, it still remains the top 3 priorities. So one of the ways of actually unpacking that information is, there's a lot of buzz around modernization, digital services, and digitization. But if you really go into the details, I think more and more of that work either involves a current legacy problem that agencies have, and or the costs that are building up because of maintaining these legacy systems, and then coming up with a roadmap of how to really move these into and manage the risk in terms of security and business users, operation, and pretty much the whole 9 yards of making it scalable. And so this panel is pretty much going to be touching upon all these topics and what more can we ask. We have representation from a great cloud data management company, an enterprise cloud company that is not only on cloud but also on-prem. Also a networking and apps company that operates on cloud and on-prem. And last but not the least, we have a representative actually who's been on the forefront of managing terabytes of data from census to share all this information. So with that background, I wanted to take a few moments and introduce the 4 panelists we have in the alphabetical order. First, we have Atri Kalluri, who is a senior executive at Census Bureau. He spent over 25 years as an IT professional, focusing mainly on large-scale censuses, surveys, and GIS, geoinformation systems. He's led development and provisioning for critical programs at US Census Bureau, most notably for the 2020 census, which I'm sure most of you have been part of recently, and the American Community Survey and Geography. Next, we have Dan Fallon, who's a director of systems engineering at Nutanix. I'm sure most of you know Nutanix Federal. They are both on-prem and cloud. So Dan has led technical teams transforming data centers from unwieldy, expensive, complicated to actually more efficient, cost-effective, and helping government agencies successfully meet their mission needs. Then we have Sean. Sean currently serves as a senior VP of public sector at Riverbed Technologies. I'm sure Riverbed enables organizations to maximize performance both on networks and applications. Prior to that, he was heading Cloudera as the president. And prior to that, he's been at Horton Federal, Red Hat, and he's been in this space for a long time, and we'll hear a lot of good things from him. Last but not the least, we have Tom Kennedy, who's currently the vice president of the public sector at Rubrik. Rubrik, I'm sure, is a cloud data management company, and he's responsible for not just strategy but also the execution in all the governments, federal, state, local. And he's been in this public sector for over 20 years, and not just built teams but also delivered innovative solutions and mostly client focused in terms of solving problems and getting them. So with that intro, I wanted to welcome all the panelists on the floor. So thank you everyone for making time and being part of this panel and also supporting TIDC. So before I kick off, I wanted to at least lay the framework, and so we'll probably spend first 15-20 minutes with some very pointed questions about your own organization and your own kind of background and discussing about things. And I want to keep at least 15-20 minutes towards the end for the audience to come in and engage with some pointed questions. So with that, again, starting alphabetically, Atri, do you want to take 2-3 minutes, just briefly introduce yourself, your work you've been doing, more in the context of this panel?
Sure. Thank you, Sunny, and hello, everyone. As you probably know, the U.S. Census Bureau is synonymous with data. Our mission is to serve as the nation's leading provider of quality data about its people, places, and economy. And that's how we measure America. But our goal, obviously, is to provide the best mix of timeliness, relevancy, quality, and cost for the data we collect and services we provide. And we try to achieve that through innovation, use of technology, and more importantly, through partnership with industry. One highlight of such a partnership with industry is the successful execution of data collection for the 2020 census. I assume everyone in the US on this call responded to the census, or if you did not, that you heard your door knocked by a census worker. Decennial census is the largest civilian undertaking by the federal government and involves counting everyone once, only once, and in the right place. And because the census is conducted all across the country over a relatively short period of time, scalability of our systems and solutions was the main requirement. And so cloud became the most ideal solution from an infrastructure perspective. We used a hybrid cloud, a multi-cloud environment that worked well for us. And I'm proud to say that our internet solution that was designed to handle 600,000 concurrent users had zero downtime. Think about that. In the federal government with a system with such high capacity, zero downtime. So we're really proud of that. And cloud actually made that possible for us. And just as many of you, we adapted to the COVID-19 pandemic situation and conducted the census by relying on the cloud, including the management of our temporary workforce by hiring over the course of this past year, 528,000 of them to work in temporary census jobs throughout the nation. So we used big data technologies, including Hadoop platform, several solutions for bot management and handling distributed denial of service attacks, and a multitude of solutions for security. Going forward, the Census Bureau is facing increased complexity of survey and census operations, declining response rates, complex needs of data users, and importantly, privacy and confidentiality threats. So we are transforming the way we conduct our business through collaboration with the industry partners in implementing greater processing and analytical capabilities in the areas of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science, preferably in a cloud environment. So I look forward to having further discussion on this, but with that, I'll hand over to the next speaker.
Perfect. Hey, thanks a lot, Atri. So Dan, you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having us here, and thank you for everyone attending today. So I am the Senior Director at Nutanix, running our systems engineering team for our government vertical public sector with local and federal government. And I've been with Nutanix over 8 years now, since 2012. We pioneered the space in hyperconverged on-prem infrastructure. We've helped modernize many organizations, data centers, and transition them to private cloud. And over the last couple of years, through combination of some acquisitions and organic development, we've really built out the hybrid cloud infrastructure, kind of the next journey for the company and for our customers alike. is transitioning to really an end state of operating both in an on-prem capacity and then also utilizing public cloud environments. And you look at Gartner and Forrester and even the transition that the government has done to from going from cloud first to cloud smart as a policy. That's really where organizations seem to be landing is some type of hybrid cloud, multi-cloud infrastructure, which it's not easy to do. So you really need a platform to abstract all that and provide a simple management layer so that moving to the cloud doesn't create more challenges, doesn't give you more silos that requires a lot more cost and admin time to manage. The cloud is all about simplification and agility and the ability to burst and use capacity when you need it, like things like the census. Perfect example of you need a burst of capacity for the decennial gathering of data. So the capability to do that, but to make it easy, so it's not a complete code rewrite, not a massive multi-year effort, that you can do that in a matter of weeks and even days, and helping organizations like what they've done with transition to work from home with the pandemic and being able to burst capacity and expand their virtual desktop and EUC environments. So we built a number of services on top of our kind of core infrastructure offering to really offer cloud services both on-prem and in the cloud, from database as a service to desktop as a service, to kind of supporting things like security, microsegmentation, cost governance, and all the things that you really want for an enterprise cloud environment. So for those who haven't maybe checked this out in the last year or two, we've added just a number of offerings to really encompass a full solution for the enterprise. So again, thank you.
Perfect. Hey, thanks, Dan. Sean, you want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure to be back with the TIDC group, and I wish it was in person, but Zoom is the way of life. So as Sunny mentioned, I'm the Senior Vice President of Public Sector at Riverbed. Riverbed is an organization that for nearly the past 2 decades has helped the world's largest organizations maximize the performance of their networks and applications. The way we used to do that was in a very point-to-point manner, whether it was from data center to the branch or from branch to branch. Back then, it was quite simple to go from A to B. Today's architecture is significantly more complex and much more hybrid, as we will discuss. It includes cloud, it includes still those data centers, but also the proliferation of remote workers, laptops, mobile devices, all of us sitting here on Zoom and coming together. So that same value proposition that we brought back then is actually significantly more amplified as networks today have become significantly more complex, dynamic, and continuing to evolve. What we do is we help customers optimize their networks and their applications across the entire footprint, taking that same intellectual property and changing its form factor, whether it's a physical steelhead device, virtualizing it, putting it in the cloud, or running it on laptops and clients. But more so, what we do is we also provide visibility into what's running on that network. And so, as I'm sure we'll get into in a bit later in the session, one of the challenges with a more complex and distributed network is security, identifying where performance vulnerabilities may be and being able to get to the root cause. And that requires in-depth understanding and analysis of what's on your networks. Riverbed's able to provide that. Lastly, though, it's one thing to look at applications that you own. With a migration to a cloud and SaaS world, oftentimes those applications are managed by a third-party provider. And so whether it's a Microsoft Teams or an O365 or a Zoom, we provide capabilities to accelerate those software as a service components as well. So I'm excited to talk with this group again, excited to be back, and look forward to the questions and discussion.
Well, thanks a lot, Sean. Let's go to Tom. Tom, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me as well. So as some of the previous speakers mentioned, Tree talked about the emergence of the hybrid cloud environment and how common that is today. And Dan talked about the importance, and what Nutanix was built on was hyperconvergence and bringing operational simplicity. That's really what Rubrik was built on and is all about. We are the cloud data management company, so we help government agencies make the most of their, and make sense of their data management strategy across their hybrid cloud environment. We are a disruptor. We are out there disrupting this legacy data management, data protection market that's been out there for a long time, doing things the same way for a long time, while the market has changed quite a bit. We blend this new future-proof architecture with consumer-grade simplicity to pioneer a fresh approach to data management. Let me talk real quick about Rubrik as a company. We have a lot of exciting things going on for us. Rubrik is one of the fastest growing companies in Silicon Valley today. We are in just our 6th year, but we have been getting a lot of recognition as a company. We're included in Forbes top cloud companies recently, in the top 10. Snowflake was another company in that top 10 of Forbes top cloud companies. We've gotten regular recognition from LinkedIn as one of the best startup companies to work for. And we actually just recently got recognized by Gartner and made it into their Gartner Magic Quadrant. But most excitingly about that was we ranked highest in anyone in our industry around completeness of vision. So a lot of exciting things going on with Rubrik, and we have some real exciting investment team led by some major VC companies like Lightspeed and Greylock and Bain, and some huge industry titans behind us, including John Thompson, who's the chairman of the board of Microsoft, John Chambers, Enrique Salem, and Frank Slootman, who is, of course, the CEO of Snowflake. So a lot of exciting things going on in Rubrik, and again, I'm happy to join the panel.
Perfect. Hey, thanks, Tom. So now flipping gears here, I wanted to go back to Atri and maybe deep dive into one or two of the programs that you have undertaken. So if you take a step back and look at it from the lens of purely adoption of technology or modernization, or how you look into it, more than likely it is not just a question of a tech stack or a solution, but it's a sum total parts of all the things that go along with it, right? The complex nature of what already exists, because that's completely beyond scope, because you need to live with what's already there. You're not going to unplug and plug one fine day, to looking at options of how to really manage risks from serving your business users. In your case, users are most of them are public, right? They're going to access it. But balancing that to how this whole decision is being made and pulled through in terms of what to migrate or how to migrate, or whether it's a lift and shift or it's an optimization. So a lot of these things come through. So I wanted to understand from your perspective, since you've managed all these big transformation, how did you really go about doing all these things? What kind of challenges that came across, and how did you really go about diffusing this and pulling this off, Atri?
Yes, so I'll do my best in the time we have. I can take a whole day to talk about this, to be honest. But with the decennial census, the complexity of it is that there were 35 different operations. Basically, from collecting data in Alaska and Maine to the island areas to all of the continental United States. 3 options that people wanted, internet being the main, but there are populations that still wanted paper. And then there were people that preferred calling. So with all of these, we really had to plan as to how we would scale to the levels that we would need to, especially for the internet self-response system. So we experimented with various solutions in a series of tests that we conducted before deciding on a final architecture. And that was in 2018, when we said, okay, this is the architecture that we tried, we tested, and it seems like it would scale. And let's now actually do the end-to-end testing where we bring about all the 52 systems to talk to each other. And then we decided, based on security and the data complexity, which of the systems would have to be on the cloud and which ones have to be in our own data center. Like the Title 26, which is the federal tax information data, we didn't want to put it in the cloud because obviously it requires many more approvals in addition to FedRAMP, approval from IRS. So there were some decisions like that that were easier to make because of the policies that were associated. But for areas like questionnaire assistance, where people could call in, and these were basically call centers, we went with a service approach where the vendors came with their own cloud solutions. And our job was to integrate all of these various cloud solutions so we could bring the data from one cloud to the other. The challenge you talked about, with the government, in addition to the time it takes to acquire and finalize, it's the FedRAMP certification, the getting the ATO, it takes time. So, and that is what we didn't have, the luxury of time. So we had to really quickly stand up our systems and allow for the vendors to build solutions that could take advantage of the FedRAMP services in the cloud. And in some cases, we had to provision equipment. And the challenge there was the supply chain risk assessment that the Department of Commerce insisted that we go through because of the high visibility of the project. And that itself takes time, looking at every component of every solution that we need and going through the supply chain risk assessment. So let me stop there and see if there are further questions on that, because it's quite complex and many of our decisions were based on the policy and the ease of transferring the technology to the cloud, what was already available, and so on.
Perfect. Hey, thanks, Hatri. So now, putting that same question from a different perspective, I know as cloud data management company or the providers, how do you look at opportunities? And I'm sure there's been a big learning curve from the day you were a startup and you did your whatever deployment to, let's fast forward and say several years later, you picked up your first government client and maybe now a lot of government clients. So if you can speak about broadly, what kind of challenges that you see through your filters, and how have you kind of broadly addressed that? Maybe we'll start with Dan and then go with Sean and then Tom.
Yeah, I've had the benefit and fortune of seeing a lot of the Nutanix growth. When I joined, we only had a handful of government customers. Finished our first year in the government market, and I think as you get bigger, we now have over, I think it's like 17,000 customers worldwide, and government's just a portion of that. You have a lot more demands in terms of building out different feature sets. The big thing we've always focused on from day one in the federal space and the government space in general is the security. I mean, FedRAMP was just mentioned. That's a big thing as you get into cloud services, so multi-tenant services. And then there's a whole nother set for on-prem, things like common criteria, approved products list, FIPS 140-2, and some of those carry over to cloud as well. But we're going through all the on-prem, and it's a never-ending, security never stops, because once you finish one certification, you either have another one or you have a new software release that you have to certify. As we've expanded our product portfolio, we now have more products to run through those security accreditations. And then in the cloud world, FedRAMP is a gold standard. And I think FedRAMP is misunderstood, kind of as this easy button, but it's really pretty similar to a standard security ATO or authority to operate, just in the public cloud and with more reciprocity between agencies if you're going through the FedRAMP agency route, which is, I think, how most vendors do it to start. So I think, in from the vendor perspective, I think those are high priorities for government clients. I think they're only going to increase, and they're only going to expand beyond the government world with all the cybersecurity threats, especially with, we may be working from home and there may be data we have to have in the cloud, but we need to have it secure. And then we have users coming in from different access points. They're no longer on government networks. They're coming in from their home network. So it's only increasing the need for security standards. And I think as a vendor, that's what we put a lot of focus in there to make sure we're meeting the expectations of the federal market and the broader government market.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Sean, you want to go next on the same theme?
Yeah, absolutely. And coincidentally, we just published, we recently surveyed 200 federal government IT decision makers on this topic, on some of their major concerns and the trends that they're seeing as you start to look to cloud-based applications and expansion of new endpoints. And so I'll go over some of the 3 emerging trends that came out of that survey, but please feel free to visit my LinkedIn page and you can actually access both the blog as well as the report itself. So, kind of following the same trends that we discussed, I opened with talking about network complexity being high, and that was something that emerged quite universally across the decision makers. 90% of those surveyed considered that their networks were already moderately to highly complex today. And 32% of them said that the increasing network complexity is the greatest challenge that they have without visibility into their network. Which leads us to the second key trend, which was visibility is the key to security. One of the things that I like to talk to customers about is you can't secure what you can't see, right? And so having that visibility into the network and understanding the traffic is incredibly important. We provide a tool, as I mentioned, our network performance monitoring, that gives that visibility. And we have quite a strong footprint in the federal government, and we have yet to have a case where a customer wasn't surprised by something that we found on the network. And that's not new, obviously. When you look at the proliferation of virtual machines and some of the other components in the past, that's a common occurrence where even under the tightest environments, there are surprises. And so having that visibility is incredibly important. But finally, this move, whether it's COVID or just a move before that, the federal government and organizations were beginning to embrace somewhat of a dynamic work structure, or telework. And so that telework now cuts traffic, but it also drives change, right? Your end user experience, your way of managing the network has to evolve and adjust to support those new mechanics. So we saw, again, 81% of those surveys saw that increasing use of telework accelerated their agency's use and deployment of network visibility. So it empowered and enabled them to perhaps advance certain initiatives, but at the same time introduce new complexities and challenges. So those are the 3 trends that we're seeing. It tends to be fairly consistent across the federal government, regardless of if you're looking at the civilian, the DoD, or the IC space.
Perfect. Hey, thanks. Tom, you want to go next on the same thing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's no secret that the government spends the majority of their IT dollars on sustainment efforts, right, versus modernization and new starts. And so you have to dig in. That's a complicated question, right? Why is that? But I think our biggest obstacle as a new company, trying to do things a different way, is the biggest opponent is the status quo, right? The do nothing. A lot of times we run into customers that have been doing this certain IT function the same way for the last 10 or 15 years. And hey, it's not necessarily broke. Yeah, it's cumbersome and, all that type of stuff, but it's not broke. So what we try to do is, rather than just isolate one aspect of that old cumbersome way of doing things, we try to open their eyes to kind of the multiple benefits that can arise from undertaking a modernization effort. So we have a lot of great use cases on our website, rubric.com. And if you go into our public sector website, you can see some specific use cases. So we measure success through these modernization efforts through simplicity and more automation, less administration. The other big metric that we use is recovery time. I mean, so many times people get caught up on protecting data, but it really comes down to how quickly can you recover if you have an incident. And boy, ransomware has really highlighted that. You know, there's so many ransomware cases out there, and we don't hear that many success stories when people are able to recover real quick from ransomware. If you want to check one out, City of Durham, North Carolina did a fantastic use case on the ability to recover very quickly using Rubric. And of course, I think Dan mentioned also in the federal space, the compliance and being able to meet all the higher security standards is another thing. So, you know, just being able to address all of those and then collectively build that business case to compel a project to go forward has been our approach, and it's been pretty successful.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. So we are close to the halfway mark here, and what I wanted to do was maybe dive in and see what kind of questions we've been getting on multiple channels. So as you know, this conference is a big portion of the attendees, more than 400, close to 400 people registered, but a big portion of them are small business owners, founders, entrepreneurs. There are a bunch of questions around it, so I'll probably put them all in one and maybe start with Tom, right? On one side of the coin, I'm sure, be it Rubrik or Riverbed or Nutanix, you've all been small startups, innovative startups where you started, you know, getting through, and at some point, you know, you cut it to the other end. And how do you now, inside out, look at working with startups? Because as a big company, are you looking for innovation from outside, like you used to be when you were small, or on the other side, if you can reflect upon how can startups work with you to bring in other gaps and other innovations that they have that can potentially fill in your portfolio, A, and B, from a you know, if you look into the government contracting as a solution, there's a lot of set aside business that is given to small businesses, and most likely majority of them are solutions and not products, right? So how do they have an opportunity to come and partner with you? So if you can highlight your partnerships or your other programs in terms of how you work with small businesses, I think that will be very helpful for this community. We'll start with Tom for a change in the reverse order.
Reverse order, you're mixing it up. I like it. So first off, Rubrik is a 100% our go-to-market strategy is a 100% channel across all of our markets. And you know, that is very important to us in the federal market specifically. I do feel strongly, I grew up in the channel, so it's very important to me and how we run things in the public sector of Rubrik. And I do think that there are multiple value propositions between the partner and the OEM. And what's exciting is we're seeing more and more specialty partners emerge that want to bring new technologies to the government. So that's the type of partner ecosystem that we've been gravitating towards, is small businesses and specialty companies that want to become experts in the products and the technology that we sell, and can be a huge force multiplier for us. So that would be my advice. Is I think there's a lot of companies like Rubrik that are out there that need help, and my biggest challenge is just getting the word out and getting in front of, you know, potential prospects. So we're always looking for companies that are willing to make a joint investment and take great new technologies to market.
So is there any email or any portal where they should go and click, and how do they get connected with somebody at Rubrik?
Yeah, go on to the website, rubric.com. I believe we have a partner site where they can link, register as a partner.
Perfect. You want to go next, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll second very much almost everything Tom just said. We are a very partner-friendly organization at Riverbed. In the public sector, we are 100% partner-driven. We have different partners depending on specialties and capabilities. And so we have a great value at all levels, whether you're a small business and service provider, an A&A, an ANC, or somebody that we can partner with from a technology integration and interoperability go to market. So like Tom said, on our website, riverbed.com, there's a partner hot link at the top. You can click in, become a partner, and that'll get you integrated into the ecosystem. That is probably more for the fulfillment and some of the 8As or reseller arms. If you have a capability from a service provider perspective or a technology integration that you think would be a good fit, reach out directly to me, Sean.Bierweiler@riverbed.com, and I'll get you integrated to the appropriate team members.
Perfect. Awesome. Dan, you want to go next, please?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, similar in nature to the channel-driven philosophy at Nutanix. So we work with a lot of channel partners. There's a unique ecosystem in federal with the small business 8A. I think federal is using OTAs, and there are also some other acronyms, SIBRs, that are set aside contracts to do innovation work on things like 5G, IoT. We had a win for our IoT product on one of those type of contracts. So those are good contracts, especially for small business, minority-owned firms. The other thing is we have the Nutanix Elevate program alliance partnership. So for technology integrations, we actually have a public sector alliance team too, just specifically for some of the unique, vertical specific solutions across the government, things like CDM in the civilian space, cyber and multi-cloud stacks, the ability to have those solutions with third-party offerings integrated. So doing something like a Riverbed or a Palo Alto integration on the network side, a Rubrik integration on the backup side. And we also look to partners, service partners. We do services ourselves, but a lot of that we like to partner out to. And we're not a services company. We're primarily focused on product and in software sales. So we like to give that to expertise, firms that have that type of expertise for integration work. There's a lot of integration projects we're doing around automation. So the upfront work to integrate Nutanix into ServiceNow and then to do the backups and the full cloud to really put the stack together and tie it all together. I think there's a lot of opportunity there for firms getting into that space, DevOps and DevSecOps as well.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Dan. So going back to Atri, the same theme, but with a different lens here, Atri. I know a lot of government agencies, a few of them are very friendly with small businesses, some of them more than others. But from your vantage point at Census, if you can highlight, how Census does business with small businesses, and that'll be very helpful on one. And the second part of that is, while definitely companies look at small businesses at some point, I think they're also looking at stability and process maturity that comes with usually large businesses or when these businesses kind of mature. So if you can highlight from your vantage point from Census how you work with small businesses and also some opportunities that you see unfolding, that'll be very helpful for this audience.
Sure. So as you know, the leadership of the Census Bureau believes in the partnership with the industry, and even for 2020 census, we actually set aside much of the business for small businesses. And so the work, the main winner of the integration contract was indeed a small business. And we do that for a purpose, because we want to encourage small businesses to participate. we can't do it alone. We rely on industry, and we have a big mission. So in order for us to achieve that, we actually design the acquisition process that allows for equal opportunity to many small businesses. And that's where businesses can join hands and bid on the work together. For large businesses, obviously, there are multiple contracts that we put out, and there'll be a lot of RFIs and RFPs for 2030 census. Believe it or not, it may sound like there's a long way to go, but every year there's a test that's performed by the Census Bureau. And so for the hundreds of surveys and many censuses that we conduct, there's always a need for help and bringing in industry partners. But for the sake of the small businesses, though, in addition to monitoring for the RFIs and the RFPs, I think our acquisition area and I talked to the chief and told her that we are going to have this session. So she told me to actually convey the information that there is a Department of Commerce acquisition forecasting tool, which actually, is now Commerce Business Opportunity Tool, CBOT as it's called. And it has a link, commerce.gov/OIM/vendors. And that's where you have the procurement forecasts. You can just Google Department of Commerce procurement forecasts and you'll find those. And then she also suggests building network and marketing the small business capabilities to other vendors, the large vendors as well as other small vendors, to try to secure subcontracting opportunities. Now, basically she suggests that this would be a good way to build that repertoire of similar experience and past performance, which is often an evaluation factor in solicitation. Additionally, there's a census.gov website, and if you search for business opportunities, you'll find descriptions of the types of work the census does and the vendor opportunities and instructions for how to get on the census vendor register is also, they're there. And then finally, she suggests that, maybe small businesses should provide capability briefings or send capability statements to the census subject matter experts, so that they can understand that these businesses meet the technical requirements, and so there'll be awareness of what the technical capabilities are. So.
Thanks, Lauratory. I know we're very close to the 1:30 mark, but let me also see if there are other questions that we can quickly go through. So there's one which is about hybrid cloud and how safe is hybrid cloud for sensitive data? So what are the different challenges for securing PHI for medical records? You want to go first, Tom?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest benefit of a hybrid approach, is that you can select different clouds with different security profiles to meet the sensitivity needs that you have, or potentially go private and keep it out of a cloud. And actually, I'd love to push it back over to Atri, because I think you were talking about that a little bit in the beginning, about how you selected different clouds based off of the profile of the projects that you were working on, right?
Yes. So, I mean, much of the data that was important for us was the respondent data. So we minimized the footprint by actually picking solutions in the right cloud that we secured. And while the hybrid cloud obviously worked well for us, much of the data processing, while the transfer of the data took place, we processed it in one cloud. So we minimized the amount of security that we had to work on, but it worked fine from the perspective of bringing the data from various other clouds onto this processing cloud, if I may call it. And from there, we securely transferred the data to our data center. So it worked perfectly, and we ensure that much of the data that cannot be in the cloud actually stayed in our data center.
Perfect. All right, so I think we're very close to the mark here. I'm getting flagged here. So just to wrap up, I wanted to give maybe a quick minute or so to each of the panelists just to comment on some of the closing comments, primarily keeping in mind that, hey, what is it, one or two things that you see if you had a crystal ball in terms of how or what things would evolve around modernization broadly, applying cloud and hybrid cloud contextually?
You want me to go now? Or?
Yeah, anyone? Yeah, Atri.
Yeah, I mean, from a census perspective, we want to tap into the transformative power of the cloud.
Okay.
It's pretty obvious, and leverage the capabilities that the industry's cloud technology providers give us. And we want to migrate more and more of our business operations to the cloud. COVID really, made us realize that we need to have our data systems and applications in the cloud to be able to access them, under these situations. It's no longer about, just storage, compute, and network. It's much more than that. We are looking for things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and realizing the value of digital transformation. There's talk about 5G and quantum processing. So Bureau is interested in doing research in that area. And we have a lot of call centers, and we basically have them in our National Processing Center. But it'll be ideal to virtualize the call centers and use the solutions that the hyperscalers provide. And then ideally, we want to have better products and services from the cloud vendors and better customer experience.
Perfect, thanks. Dan, you want to go quickly?
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize that the cloud is an operational model. It's not necessarily a destination. I think a lot of the topics we've talked about around security controls and how census had multiple locations, it's really the operational model, the organization changing so that you have the flexibility to put your data and your application where it best fits based on the enclave that has the proper security and the most economical, the most efficient. Maybe you have a high performant app that needs to be in one location and then a web service in another. So that's really at the end of the day what we're trying to offer our customers and government agencies with our cloud offerings. The ability to fully leverage multi-cloud and hybrid cloud for the best and most efficient application of their services and data. So thanks.
Sean?
Yeah, not a ton to add off of those quick recaps. I'll just state that I would agree with Tom that hybrid cloud is what the future is going to hold. And we often talk about cloud as in the all in, and it is not going to be binary. Our customers, our governments, our big Fortune 100 organizations are going to operate in a hybrid multi-cloud environment, and so making sure that you are prepared for the future and not looking at this next step as the destination, I think is going to be key. And I'll just go back to partnerships. So anyone out there that has a great, compelling technology or offering, please reach out.
Perfect. And Tom?
Yeah, thanks everyone. Exciting times right now. There's a lot of opportunity out there to modernize and digitalize. Please check us out, rubric.com. Love to help out. And the TIE DC team and Sunday, thank you very much for hosting this. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Hey, once again, I want to, on behalf of the TIE DC GovCon committee, thanks for your time, and hope the audience got a lot of out of this panel. And once again, I appreciate all your support for TIE DC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Cindy. That was a great panel. I'm going to share screen and share some updates on the programming and also our sponsors. So again, thank you to our great panel. We have another session starting in just a few minutes, but in between then, we'd like to share a few moments with you regarding our sponsors. So once again, we'd like to thank our platinum sponsor, Harmonia, for supporting us and bringing forth lots of resources for us to put on such a fabulous program with great speakers. I'd also like to thank our silver sponsor, Red Cedar Consultancy, for sponsoring us today and the Capital GovCon. You can visit Red Cedar's website at www.redcedarconsultancy.com. We'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our bronze sponsor, Navitas. Here's a few words from them.
As enterprises strive to capitalize on disruptive technologies, they must be agile and ready to transform their services into faster, more responsive processes in order to meet growing demands and challenges. You must choose a partner that delivers transformation driven by expert talent. A partner that is robust yet personalized, disciplined yet flexible, collaborative, and innovative. Navitas provides a perfect combination of technology, people, innovation, and expertise. As experts in multi-cloud, with services in digital engineering, data, and artificial intelligence, we'll use the breadth and strength of our capabilities to help you improve speed, achieve desired outcomes, and reduce costs. As the demand for an agile infrastructure and dependence on the cloud rises, Navitas will guide and accelerate your multi-cloud adoption with an infrastructure that is supported by the new multi-cloud operating model with end-to-end automation. Designed for flexibility and to evolve as your demands grow, we use the most advanced technologies and our strategic roadmaps to modernize legacy applications and adopt digital technologies that will transform your business. To ensure operational efficiency at a lower cost, flexibility to work across multi-cloud platforms, and improve decision-making support, Navitas will help build a unified data platform with machine learning and advanced analytics that can help you garner timely insights and do more with the data. We believe accelerators are a powerful asset for any business, which is why we created our own. Since 2006, we've built Washington, D.C.'s premier professional services network that has a reputation for delivering quality that is fit for the future. We celebrate our team's talents and strive to enhance their potential, allowing us to attract and keep the sharpest minds with the most impactful skills. Our extensive network and vibrant culture are our greatest strengths and the foundation of our services, and we can't wait to welcome you into it. Innovation, delivery excellence, and expertise are the building blocks in Navitas Solutions. We are committed to working side by side with you, personalizing our services and tailoring our processes to help you realize your visions and achieve your most challenging goals today and in the future.
Thank you, Navitas.
As enterprises
for that. And we'd also like to thank all of our sponsors, and I encourage all of you to visit our sponsors on the sponsor pages. There's lots of great information there that has handouts and information about the sponsors and how you can connect with them. So please do visit them on their sponsor pages. It's on the left of your screen.